All right, let's talk about milk. Ever wonder why you can down a glass of it no problem, but for your friend it's, well, a recipe for disaster? Today, we're going to unravel the incredible story of lactose tolerance. And trust me, it's a wild journey that goes from a tiny sugar molecule deep into our own DNA and all the way back to the dawn of agriculture. So let's dive in.
So here's the big question, right? Why can some of us drink milk as adults when, get this, over 65% of the entire world's population can't? I mean, think about that. Being lactose intolerant as an adult isn't the weird thing, it's actually the global norm. The real surprise, the biological oddity, is being able to drink milk at all.
To figure this mystery out, we have to look a little closer. The answer isn't actually about the milk itself. Nope, it's all about the amazing biological factory working away inside our own bodies. So let's zoom in, way in, from the kitchen counter right down to the cellular level.
Okay, so our story really starts with this one molecule, lactose. This is the main sugar you find in milk, and it's a fantastic source of energy. But there's a catch. See, it's a really big molecule, way too big to just pass through the walls of our intestine and get into our bloodstream. It needs to be broken down first.
And that brings us to the hero of our story, a little protein called lactase. Lactase is a special kind of protein, an enzyme. And the easiest way to think about it is like a pair of molecular scissors. It has one and only one very specific job. Find a lactose molecule and snip it right in two.
So when everything's working just right, the whole process is super simple. You drink some milk, that lactose travels down to your small intestine. Your lactase enzymes, those molecular scissors, get to work, snipping the lactose into two much smaller, more manageable sugars, glucose and galactose. And these little guys are small enough to be absorbed right into your bloodstream, giving your cells some clean, easy energy.
So you really end up with two totally different outcomes. If you have lactase, you get energy. Simple. But what happens if you don't have those molecular scissors? Well, that big undigested lactose molecule just keeps on moving down into the large intestine, where it basically becomes an all-you-can-eat buffet for your gut bacteria. And as they chow down, they release byproducts like gas, which leads to all that bloating and discomfort we call lactose intolerance. This brings us to the next big question, doesn't it? As babies, pretty much all humans make plenty of lactase. So why on earth do most people stop making these absolutely crucial lactase scissors as they get older? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is written in our genetic code.
The blueprint for building that lactase enzyme? It's all found in one specific gene, called the LCT gene. It's got the precise instructions our cells need to put this vital protein together, piece by piece.
But here's what's so fascinating. The gene itself is usually perfectly fine. The real issue is with its control system, a kind of genetic on-off switch that's located in a totally different part of the DNA. For pretty much all other mammals, this switch is programmed to turn the LCT gene off once they're done nursing. It just makes sense, it's an efficiency thing.
And the exact same thing is true for most humans. This is our original ancestral setting. The LCT gene does its job when we're babies, and then, somewhere in childhood, that genetic switch just flips, production winds down, and that's when adult lactose intolerance kicks in. This is the default for human beings. But then, about 7,500 years ago over in Europe, something absolutely remarkable happened. A tiny, completely random mutation popped up. And it wasn't in the LCT gene itself, but in that all-important on-off switch area. A single letter of the genetic code, a C, got accidentally swapped out for a T. And the effect of this one tiny little typo was monumental. It basically jammed the genetic switch, propping it into the permanent on position. So for anyone who inherited this mutation, their bodies would just keep churning out that lactase enzyme for their entire adult lives. They had gained what we call lactase persistence.
Okay, but hold on. We've got a random mutation in maybe one person. How in the world did that single genetic typo spread so far and wide that today billions of people carry it? To get that, we have to zoom back out from the DNA and take a look at what was happening in the world 7,500 years ago. So back then, you had all kinds of human societies. You had nomadic groups, hunting wild animals and foraging for plants. And then you had the rise of agricultural societies, people who settled down in one place, started growing crops, and, this is the key part, started domesticating animals like cattle for both meat and milk.
Now, for these early farmers, having access to milk was revolutionary. I mean, it was a super reliable, nutrient-packed source of calories, fat, and even clean water, especially when crops failed or hunting was bad. There was just one tiny problem. As adults, they couldn't digest it. But for anyone who just happened to have that lucky C to T mutation, milk wasn't just food, it was a superfood. Okay, check this out. This is a simulation showing how that gene for lactose tolerance, we'll just call it the L gene, spreads. And it is so telling. Look, with no real environmental pressure, the number of people with the gene just kind of stays the same. But if you introduce a situation where milk is suddenly crucial for survival, whoa, that L gene absolutely skyrockets through the population. We're talking just 5 generations.
This, my friends, is a textbook example of natural selection in action. It's the process where organisms that have a trait that gives them a survival advantage are way more likely to live, have kids, and pass that winning trait on to the next generation. And in these early farming communities, being able to get life-saving calories from milk wasn't just some minor convenience, it was a powerful survival advantage. People with lactase persistence were healthier, they were better fed, and they were much more likely to survive and have kids, who would then inherit that exact same trait. So let's put it all together. Here's the whole story in a nutshell. Lactose intolerance is our original default state. But then, a tiny, random mutation created lactase persistence. In populations that had cattle, this new trait was a huge survival advantage. And through natural selection, that trait spread like wildfire through their descendants, literally rewriting our genetic story. And what this all means is, if you can go to the fridge, pour a glass of milk, and drink it without a second thought, you are a walking, talking piece of evolutionary history. Your ability to do that is a direct biological link, stretching all the way back to the diet, the lifestyle, and the sheer survival of your farming ancestors thousands of years ago. Pretty cool, right? Which leaves us with one last really fascinating question to chew on. We've just seen how our diet and our environment drove this incredibly fast and dramatic change in our genetic code. So it really makes you wonder, what parts of our modern lives, our modern diets, are shaping the next chapter of human evolution as we speak?